So you are Claude Williams, DOC number 303208. You've submitted an application for clemency. You're requesting a commutation of your sentence, which is life plus 10 years. You received in December 1999 out of East Baton Rouge Parish for a second-degree murder and aggravated battery. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, Mr. Wise.
Okay, good afternoon. Sir, you've been incarcerated since you was arrested back in 1997. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
You got sentenced. And you got sentenced in 99. And as Ms. Renata just read off, life in 10 years. I want you to tell me a little about what happened to this board today and just kind of go over it where all the board members can know about Veronica Williams and Rodney Washington.
The night of the incident, I was leaving and I followed her to her mother's house. She went in and picked the kids up and I followed her home. And we got home, we got into an argument. The argument got heated and I grabbed a knife, stabbing her numerous times and incidentally injured Rodney at the same time. And I'm totally responsible for the death that I caused and the injuries I did to Rodney. And pain and suffering I caused to children and family members.
Yeah, as far as the programs and stuff have you taken a good bit of anger management?
Yes, sir. I've taken anger management.
Was you drinking at the time or?
Yes, sir, I had a few drinks.
On drugs or anything?
No, sir, I never did any drugs in my life.
How old was this child?
Sir?
How old was the child?
Ashley was 12 and Rodney was 10 at the time of the incident.
I'm talking about the one you stabbed.
He was 10.
Rodney was 10, the one that you stabbed?
Yes, sir.
How long you been in state police barrack?
3 years.
How long you been incarcerated?
22.
22 years?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I don't have any other questions.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Roche?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Williams. How are you doing?
A little bit nervous.
Okay, just settle down. We're going to have a conversation. Excuse me. We're going to have a conversation, just one friend to the other. Now, sound like you were stalking your wife or your ex-wife. Were you married to the victim at the time?
Yes, sir, I was married to her. We had separated.
And why were you following her?
Well, I wanted to talk back to her to see about getting my name put on the deeds on the house at the particular time. I had been there earlier that evening, and then when we left, she left to go out. And I went by a friend's house and stayed over there a while. And that's when I saw her pass and I followed her to her mother's.
Was it worth a conversation about a deed?
Yes, sir. At the time, it was a stupidity on me. I didn't know the situation was going to end up like it did.
So you said you had a couple of drinks. How many is a couple?
3 or 4.
And you had a 10-year-old and 12-year-old?
Yes, sir.
were these children your biological children?
No, sir, but I love them just like they were.
If you love them, you wouldn't have abused their mother in front of them.
I didn't, at the time I snapped, but this stabbing to Rodney, it was where they was coming in to defend and break up the fight, and that's how he grabbed the knife and got cut. I didn't initially did that.
According to your rap sheet, you have 11 adult arrests.
Yes, sir.
5 was for traffic violations, and 6 of those were for criminal activity. So you had some extensive experience with police before this happened. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
How long had you been incarcerated prior to this time?
And this is the first time I ever been incarcerated.
So basically, you didn't know exactly how incarceration would feel or how it would go.
No, sir.
Let me inform you that the DA's office in East Baton Rouge Parish is strongly opposed to this request. You have multiple agencies with law enforcement opposed to this request. You have multiple victims, the mother, the sister, and other relatives, including the victim's children, opposed to this request. Tell me why I should vote to reduce your sentence and set a parole eligibility date for you.
But 22 years ago, I'm not the person that I am now. And I've been working with the reentry program, and I work with the students there and doing mechanic work, and I talk to them every day, telling them about how to carry themselves and the mistakes that I made entering into this system, and not to go back out on the street and do the same thing as I did to get in here. And I'm not the same person that I was when I got here today.
So you took the life of your wife, the mother of your children, which you said today you consider to be your own.
Yes, sir.
And you think 23 years of incarceration is sufficient retribution?
No, sir, there's never enough amount of time served for the crime I committed. I'm totally responsible of the death of my wife and her son.
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. But do you think 23 years is enough retribution even to consider a commutation of sentence?
I'm hammering on the court for that, to consider it, sir.
Okay. Mr. Swear, would you like to make any comments, remarks, or observations?
Yes, sir, Mr. Roche, thank you very much. Rick Swear, representing Captain Honeycutt. As Mr. Williams stated, he's been here for approximately 2.5 years, close to 3 years. The entire time he's worked in our fleet section. He's in the total of 22 years served. He's had a total of 6 write-ups. His last one was in 2013. He is considered low risk. His programming includes the mentorship in the reentry program of auto mechanics. It is a skill that he would be able to become employed in should he be considered for release. He's maintained an excellent disciplinary and work record here, and we consider him an excellent candidate for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Swear. Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Williams, I understand that you're a Navy veteran, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And I understand that you're also doing some veterans work while you've been in prison. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, sir. I've been attending the Veterans Memorial when we were going out before the COVID and help working around the outside with the flagpoles and thing when we'll go down to for the conventions every year for the veterans program.
How long have you had trustee status?
Since '05.
And you were at the ranch house for a while?
Yes, sir. I was at the ranch house from '09 until I came here to the police barracks.
Okay. Let's talk a little bit about your drinking. You indicated to Mr. Roche, I think you said you had a couple of drinks, but I'm reading your application where you say you were highly intoxicated.
Yes,
so what
sir.
were you drinking that night? How much did you have to drink that night?
We were drinking tequila and standing out talking. It was after the football game at Southern. I didn't go to the game. We just went by my friend's house and sat out there and watched the game.
Okay. Are you a social drinker or a pretty
Yes.
heavy drinker or what?
Social drinker.
How much do you drink normally when you drink?
2 or 3 beers.
And on this particular night, what did you have?
Had 4 shots.
4 shots of tequila?
Yes, sir.
Anything else? Beer?
I had beer earlier.
So how long you been drinking? Not
Since I was-
that night, but your life.
My life, I've been drinking since about 1971 when I was in the military.
Do you consider yourself to be an alcoholic?
Yes, sir.
Have you taken AA or substance abuse while you've been in prison? What have you done?
Yes, sir. I've been taking AA.
And is that something that you believe you need to continue to do?
Yes, sir.
How long do you think you'll have to do that for?
I tend to do it the rest of my life according to I'm here for now, and I look at it, and that's what caused me to had a lot to do with me on this charge, sir.
Now, you got your GED. Did you get that in prison or did you have that on the outside?
I got that in the military.
Those are all the questions I have. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Jones.
I don't have any questions, Madam Chairman.
All right. I don't have any particular questions. Mr. Williams, just want to say thank you for your Navy service. Appreciate it. We'd like to hear from the folks who are here today. Let's hear from Ms. Hamilton.
Good afternoon, honorable members of the board. My name is Melvin Hamilton. I come before you today, elected by our family, to speak in support of my Uncle Claude, who I've always called Uncle Clyde all my life. And so forgive me if I interchange the names. So I've been elected to speak in support of my uncle's petition for recommendation for parole eligibility. And we humbly as a family thank you all for the opportunity made available to us today. I sit today in both the position of sympathy and empathy for the family of Veronica, as I too have lost a sibling to a violent crime, and I've experienced this process from their seat. Therefore, for me and for our family as a whole, all of my uncles and my auntie, it's imperative that we acknowledge their continuous journey through the grief process and their pursuit of wholeness. It is truly our prayer that God continues to hold them in the hollow of his hand and allow that to take place. And so I wanted to definitely express that sympathy and empathy from my family, not just those who are currently living, but also on behalf of my grandmother and my father and my auntie, who were all deceased. We all as a family truly hold sympathy and empathy in our hearts. My task before you today is to focus on two subject matters that I think are very important here, which relates to the rehabilitation that our family has seen in my uncle, as well as his potential for successful reentry. Our family, in our talking and in our submission of written statements, has seen my Uncle Clyde through the years of incarceration pursue and make positive changes, resulting in a mild peacefulness in his mannerisms. He has obtained Class A trustee status in both facilities where he's been incarcerated, at Angola and as well as the state police barracks. To our knowledge, he worked at the ranch house at Angola, where he was at the Warden's Complex, working on ATVs and boats for the chase team. He was trusted with very secure information. He was entrusted to ensure that their equipment was working properly. And even at the state police barracks, he currently works as a mechanic and has trustee status there as well. We understand that he's not had any major behavior or write-up incidents in several years. We've been able to have ongoing communication with him where he has expressed continued remorse, and he has been participating in the choir and doing things that we see as a family to see a change in his desire to utilize any type of alcohol or any other substances, but also just to make a better person of himself. As I speak to the potential for successful reentry, I will say to the board that I understand research to show that the most important factors in post-release success to be the access to immediate need resources, employment, and human support, whether that come from a family or an organization. And so I will present to you that as a family, we are prepared to provide housing. We are prepared to support his living expenses, food, and other necessity items should he be allowed the opportunity to proceed further in his petition. He has submitted before the board a solid housing plan that is not contingent upon his ability to financially support himself, where he will reside with his brother, my Uncle John Hayes Sr. He will have the support of all of his family, his living siblings, which are 3, and his extended family, which are nieces and nephews, who are gathered on the YouTube to view on today. We are committed to assisting him with any mandated meetings, parole conditions, any medical appointments, employment needs that may arise as a family. He, in addition, has made successful contact with a potential employer, Cut and Clean Lawn Service, which is owned by Mr. Calvin Thomas, who has also submitted paperwork today before the board, who stands ready to offer him immediate employment. In addition, as the administrator of Kingdom of Heaven Outreach, I will act as a liaison and a case manager to my family and my uncle, to assist him with acquiring successful reentry and eliminate his potential to recidivate before you all, and before the system, again, if he's allowed the opportunity to proceed with his petition process. As a family unit, we understand the importance of making a solid and swift effort to support my Uncle Clyde through this process, where he has repeatedly told us that his hope is to show atonement for his actions, to request and earn forgiveness, and to be upon a path of self-sufficiency. And so that is what we intend to do if he's allowed the opportunity. We do not minimize in any way his past actions, nor do we look slightly upon the pain that he caused. It was not just to Veronica's immediate family. It also extended to our family, as we are all raised by my grandmother, myself included, to love people, to do good by people, and to make the best life for ourselves. And so, as I said, we do not look slightly upon his actions nor that pain. And we can just only pray that one day he is able to receive forgiveness, as we are certain that he has true remorse for his actions. And so we, as a family, we respectfully and we humbly thank the board for the opportunity, and we extend our prayers to the family of Veronica Williams. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hamilton, on behalf of the family. So could we hear now from Ms. Vanessa Kiles?
It's Ashley Washington. They put it under the wrong person.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
It's
Ms.
okay.
Washington, we'd like to hear from you.
Okay. The loss of a loved one is never easy, but the loss of a mother is another battle. A battle that is extremely difficult and confusing for anyone, no matter what age it occurs at. Unfortunately, I was faced with this situation at the age of 12 unexpectedly. During the time an adolescent needs their parents the most. Not only have I had to live without my mother, but I also have had to live with the daily bondage of depression and anxiety. I at times told with the images of that morning. I often battle with what more could have I done to save her? Was it my fault? What could have a 12-year-old done to save their mother? Nothing. On September the 7th, 1997, my life was forever changed. One of the most horrific, distortful incidents occurred. My mother was killed. My mother, Veronica Williams, was stabbed, was stalked, and later killed by her husband because she was leaving him. Claude Williams killed his wife in the sight of her two innocent children. My mother, myself, and my brother fought Mr. Williams to stop this occurrence. My mother and my brother myself and my brother were left there to try and save her. Seeing my mother murdered in front of me has impacted several things in my life. Claude Williams stabbed my mother 11 times and slit her throat. On this morning, Mr. Williams did exactly what he had threatened my mother he would do for years. He killed her. This abuse didn't begin on September the 7th, but it ended. And just how Mr. Williams always said it would. He took away someone who meant so much to so many people. She was more than a sister, a daughter, or a friend. She was a mother to two innocent children that needed her as much as she needed them. We had a remarkable bond. Because of Mr. Williams' selfish act of jealousy, anger, and rage, we grew up a lot different. My brother who is now deceased, was raised by my dad, and I was raised by my grandmother. Because of the death of my mother, my brother's life was impacted mentally. My brother fell into a deep, depressive, rebellious state, which led his life down the wrong path. The death of my mother impacted Rodney Jr. She was his best friend. They had a mother-son bond that was unimaginable. Rodney tried and fought his depression, but masked it the wrong way through drugs. He had lost everything that meant anything to him. He would often tell me that because he made the decisions that he made because he missed her. He was sorry he couldn't save her, and he just wanted to be happy with her. Claude destroyed us. After the passing of my mother, I completely shut down and stopped talking to anyone for years. Emotionally, I didn't want to have to deal with anyone. I didn't trust people, and I still don't to this day. I went through life emotionally scarred, uncertain, and very confused at times. This all still feels unreal. I've had to miss many memorable moments any child shouldn't experience without their mother. My mother has missed every childbirth that I've had, every accomplishment that I've made, and several other milestones that I had to walk through alone. At times, I just wish it was all a dream and she would just return, but in reality, I know it can't happen. Currently, I have to deal with this difficulty of explaining to my own children why their grandmother is not here. This occurrence affects my daughter because she can hear about all the amazing things her grandmother did and how much of a loving, beautiful person she was, but she will never be afforded the ability to meet her. None of my children will. Because of a selfish, jealous act of rage. I will have to live with this nightmare forever. I've lived the last 23 years in bondage placed on me by Mr. Williams. It has caused me a tremendous amount of pain. Claude's act to do what he did has and will continue to affect my entire family. I pray daily for a heart of forgiveness because I know that without that, I won't be able to heal. But I'm also aware that with prayer, time, true healing will come. There is no amount of rehabilitation classes, no programs, nor any good deeds that Mr. Williams can do to bring her back. Mr. Williams has a right to request clemency pardon for the crime he committed, but I can't request my mother back. For all of these reasons, I ask that you grant his request.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. We appreciate your input this afternoon. We'd like to hear from the DA's office, please.
Options to bring my sister back. He had a trial and was convicted for life with no parole. What kind of motivation does this hearing send to would-be murderers? My niece and nephew witnessed a terrible, life-changing, senseless loss of a precious life, and this will affect our family for the rest of our lives. What if we knew during trial that he would serve less of his sentence? We would have been devastated. What if my sister was your sister? The justice system is really torn to subject us or any, the justice system is really torn to subject us or any other victim with this process of rehashing to prove our grief to impress the decision makers. I don't want to see him or hear his voice, nor support his hearing. A statement from any victim is obvious pain. We ask that you do the right thing and uphold the law as if it were your family member. We as a family have been through enough. Oftentimes, it still feels like a horrible nightmare that I will awake from. Rehabilitation does not bring my sister back, nor remove any grief and pain that we live daily. Thank you, Vanessa Kyles. And there's really not much more that I, as an assistant district attorney, can add. I would like the members of the board to know that Julie Colora has been an amazing source of support and strength for Ashley throughout this process. I've spoken with her several times over the past few months, and just through telephone conversations, I can hear the difference that Julie has made. So we are all very appreciative of that. Obviously, Mr. Williams has done many things while incarcerated to earn many privileges, and he's living a life of incarceration that is, the word free is not the right word, but he does enjoy some privileges. And And he has earned them, and we certainly don't take issue with that. But we feel at this point in time, one privilege he has not earned is any type of commutation or granting of clemency. So we ask that the board recognize that he has not served enough time to grant it at this point in time would deprecate the seriousness of the offense, which, as Mr. Roche has said earlier, that is something that also needs to be considered, coupled with all of the good things he has done while incarcerated. So we respectfully ask that the request be denied. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for Ms. Kalura for your work. We appreciate it. Mr. Williams, is there a statement you'd like to make before we reach a decision?
Yes, I like to tell them that I'm totally sorry for what I did. And I could blow breath back in our body, I would. And yes, I was jealous. And I know nothing I can say or do will bring her back. I feel the same pain that they do every day. I love it.
All right, thank you, sir. Mr. Wise, I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to be voting. I vote to deny because I see some insufficient time that you serve. Plus, we have strong victims and law enforcement opposition. I am saying this, you need to work on as much anger management as you can because of some of the things. Thank you.
Mr. Roche?
Mr. Williams, as I stated before, 23 years of incarceration is not a sufficient retribution. So it's insufficient time served. You have multiple victims opposed. The district attorney's office is opposed, and you have law enforcement opposition. And you have somewhat of a extensive criminal background with 11 different arrests. I think another cycle of and maybe next time, if you keep up the good work, keep a good disciplinary record, it might be a different story, but I'm going to deny your request today.
Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Williams, you have done a lot of very good things while you've been incarcerated. You're a very trusted inmate. All of those things are true, and I commend you for all of those things. You're 67 years old, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All of those things factor in on our decision, but like Mr. Roche said, I just concerned that 22, 23 years is just not a lot of time for the crime that you committed. Based upon all of the things that have been said already, law enforcement opposition, I would encourage you to continue to do what you're doing. Perhaps next time might be the time for you, but today I have to deny your request. Vote to deny your request.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, I concur with my colleagues, just not enough time sufficient. And my vote today would be to deny also.
So, Mr. Williams, you've received 4 votes to deny your application for clemency. So today, that is the outcome of today's proceedings, and everyone has encouraged you to stay the course and reapply at such time you're eligible to do so. Good luck to you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
And Mr. Swear, that concludes our business with you today. So we'll adjourn at 4:33. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all. Have a good evening.
Sadly, we don't have anything to go over on this case. He just took a plea deal, so there's no appeals, there's no newspaper articles, although you would think that a man sneaking into the house and stabbing to death his ex-wife, and injuring his child would have been something that would have made a headline somewhere. Yeah, it's like, where do you start? I mean, whenever you see people that plead for someone to get out in these cases, it just blows your mind. And then of course you have Jim Wise who gets the case, and he has no idea how to do an interview. It's like, how old was the boy that you stabbed? He was 10. No, the boy that you stabbed, how old was he? He was 10. So the boy you stabbed was 10? Yes. No further questions. And it's like, okay, Jim, that's great interview right there. And as far as interviews go, he handled it pretty well. I think I have to give him that kind of credit in terms of, checking the T's and dotting the I's. For Mr. Mirabella, I'm always an alcoholic. It's alcohol that drove me to do this. But in terms of showing, I don't know, to me, like, no remorse, no sense of humanity and regret. I just didn't get that feeling. Maybe I missed it. I love that the DA was there. It's so powerful to always see her. She's my favorite DA. And it's just, when you think about it, when you put yourself in the position, these are the things that you hear about or you read about in the newspaper or you watch on the TV shows, the true crime stuff. And it's like, and now you see him sitting here at a parole hearing, and it adds so much context to my opinion. It makes it so real. And I guess what part of it that also makes it real is that you do see someone who, by all accounts, seems quite normal, and by all accounts seems quite articulate, and by all accounts seems like someone that you might say, what did he do? And that brings to, I think, the forefront how, it's the reality of how these things happen. Because I think that, I don't know. We don't have a lot of detail on it. Is it true that he just snapped, or was there a lot of stalking that was going on and it slowly escalated to this point? Like, we don't really have all of those details, but the bottom line is he went into the house, confronted her, stabbed her to death. Her 10-year-old went to defend his mother, and he had to see that and witness that and go through that. And someone like that can never be set free, in my opinion. He's 70 years old today. He might get another chance at the apple. I think you can apply every 5 years. So, but these are the kind of things that they'll just wait until they feel that maybe he is absolutely not a risk to anyone. But I wish I could share more information. It's there's just nothing else to share except to put yourself in the terror of that house, and then the generational trauma, and to have the supporters come up. And we have seen supporters come up and say, I've lost a loved one, and I get so infuriated by that. In this case, she said, I lost a loved one to violence. So, it makes it not as bad, but still, to try to put yourself in that situation, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. To stab someone to death in front of their children, it's just, are we so numb to the horrors of that, where we're just not disgusted that he's actually has the audacity to ask for a commutation, and that people have the audacity to support him? It's just bizarre. It's like we have to wake ourselves up and say, no, we're not the crazy ones. With that, I'll let you go.
A first felony offender. Offense, manslaughter, count 1 and count 2. Sentencing date, November 24th, 2003. Sentenced to a total of 50 years. Parole date, August 1st, 2021. Good time, May 19, 2035. Full term, November 24, 2042. Is this information correct, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Kelsey.
And Mr. Atkins, how you doing today?
I'm good today. You, sir?
I'm fine. How old are you, Mr. Atkins?
50.
How long have you been incarcerated?
23 years, 8 months.
22 years, 8 months?
23.
What's your current position? What do you currently do there at the facility?
I'm a cook at SDC.
How long you been a cook?
7 years, 6 years and some change.
Tell me, again, this is a bad situation, bad crime. Tell me a little bit about your involvement in this crime.
It was a bad crime. We went to the store to get some items for a lady, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but we went there to get the items. I had a fall partner, went out and shot the father, and he told everyone, told us the whole, if we don't do what he said, he's going to kill everybody in the store. And I didn't know this was going to happen. I met them at the store.
Is this somebody that you knew? Is this a friend of yours?
I knew one of them, Eldrick Lathan. I knew one of them.
And so you just took him to the store, is what you're saying?
He called me and asked me to come to the store with him. The other guy, I did not know.
And where did this happen at?
Minden, Louisiana.
Again, it's just a pretty significant crime. And so you just said you showed up there, didn't know what was going to happen, and
yes,
the other, and who did the shooting then?
Clifton Connolly.
You knew him?
No.
So then what'd you do after it all happened?
We left.
You were picked up later that afternoon or that night?
3 days later, the 26th. It happened on the 23rd. I got picked up on the 26th, a Saturday, at my mother's house.
Well, tell me what you've been doing since you've been down. What have you been doing to help yourself? What kind of programs? What kind of treatment? First of all, were you drinking or on drugs that night?
No, sir.
Did you drink and do drugs?
I just drank a little beer.
Had you ever been arrested before?
Yes, sir.
You had been arrested before?
Yes, sir.
For what?
Possession of marijuana and a simple battery.
Had you ever gone to jail before this?
30 days on a simple battery.
So tell me what you've been doing since you've been there.
I got a graphics arts certificate, graphic design, proofreading, filmmaking. I'm I'll currently gotta get my surf aid license, but I had to go to work and had to classes for that. Got NAAA substance abuse,
Cage of Rage. That's it.
So you've taken all those courses?
Yes, sir.
What's your plans if you were to be released?
Sir,
What are your plans if you were to be released?
I plan to be a productive citizen, get a job, support myself.
What kind of work are you gonna do? Where are you gonna live? Where are you gonna go?
I can live with my mother. I love to cook. It's a passion of mine.
So you're gonna go home and cook somewhere?
Yes, sir.
Now, do you have a GED or high school diploma?
High school diploma.
Where'd you graduate from?
Minden High School,
When?
1992.
Have you had any discipline problems, any write-ups?
3.
How many?
3.
3 in 23 years. How long ago was your last one?
2003 or 4.
Okay. And when was the last time you took the classes? Well, how long ago has it been since you've taken Living in Balance? See again, Cage of Rage, pre-release, anger management. When's the last? How long ago has it been since you've taken this class?
Last year.
Last year?
Yeah, I took the $100 pre-release last year.
Okay. All right, we'll hear. Staff, you have any input for us there?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Kelsey. Riss Swear from State Police Barracks Classification. I can confirm that Mr. Atkins has been at State Police for almost 7 years now. He has a rather unique record in that he was assigned to a job that's very difficult, and he held the job for this entire time. It's not real common, particularly for that job. Guys typically rotate out, but because he's done such an excellent job, he was asked to stay on. He's been absolutely no disciplinary problem here. He's got nothing but glowing reports from all of his work supervisors.
Thank you, sir. All right, Mr. Atkins, would you answer Ms. Pearl Wise's questions, please?
Yes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
I saw that you got diplomas in graphic communication and graphic arts. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
What are you planning on doing with those?
If I can't get a job in cooking, I plan to use them wherever I go.
Tell us about that. I'm not sure what that is. What is that?
Graphic communications and graphic art is like doing layouts in magazines, newspaper articles, proofreading them, making sure the mistakes is not there, like that.
Okay, all right. Okay, that's what I was curious about. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. All right, thank you for answering my questions. That's all I have.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Now we'll hear from Mr. Benny Atkins.
I'm Benny Atkins.
All right, go ahead and make your statements, sir.
Yes, sir. Oh, are you talking to me?
Yes, sir. Talking to you. You go ahead and make your statement.
Yes, sir. I was listening at my son, and my son grew up in a home that he wasn't raised in a manner that was violent. His entire life, if you looked at his PSI. He only had those 2 incidents in his whole life. He was brought up in the church. I'm a deacon. His mother is a usher and the assistant church clerk. He didn't even have a pocket knife, and I'm sure that the record will show that. He didn't have a pocket knife, no weapons. He's never been charged with an aggravated crime. The individual that did the killing had a history of aggravated assaults and stuff. I believe my son is innocent because I know for a fact a history, when you have a history of committing violent crimes like that, that starts at a young age. You have stealing, you have robbers, you have aggravated crimes, but my son had none of that. I believe that he told me exactly what he told you when he walked in, that this man killed those people. He was visually shaken. He was visually shaken. And I feel that as a parent, had I had the money to afford a good attorney, my son would have been free. They took a statement from a convicted felon, one that had a history, a record long as my own. And what he did was to save his own life. And he could kindly to save his own life. He turned state evidence, which was a lie, on my son, saying that he took part in this. Well, how are you taking part and you don't have a weapon? You don't even have a pocket knife, a fishing knife, and you don't even have a history of this sort of thing. I mean, if you've been in prison 23 years and you only have, I think he said 2 or 3 write-ups, you maintain the job, you maintain a good character integrity. I think after 23 years of being caught up in a mess like that, that you would deserve a chance to see what you can do in society. He has a strong support network here in Mendon. Being brought up in the church, there are business people at our church that are willing to help him. I know people, I would be willing to help my son locate and find a job. He had been working with me. He was also, he didn't mention it, but I was a union welder. I got him on a job with me, and he was learning to be a fitter, and he was very good at what he did. And I'm simply saying he got a raw deal because we did not have the funds. In fact, I was told by his indentured board defender that if he didn't take that plea bargain, he would be killed, which I couldn't understand. Why would you execute my child when my child didn't even have a weapon and didn't kill anybody? He never even cut anybody. Only been in one fist fight.
Yes, sir.
I'm not understanding that. And I feel that his history as an inmate and the state institution speak for itself.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you, sir. We'll hear from Miss Linda.
I would like to say thank y'all for giving me this opportunity to speak. And on behalf of my son, Kevin, I pray for this day to come because it has been a long journey. And he's not a bad child. And he was raised up in the church. And he been given opportunities, and he wasn't raised to commit any kind of horrible crime against anyone. So if given the opportunity to be a free man again, I know that he will go by the rules, he will work hard and abide by the law of the land. And I thank y'all for this opportunity to let me speak on behalf of my son, which I love dearly. And I didn't only pray for him and my family, I also pray for the victim family as well.
Thank you.
It hurts. It hurts everyone.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we'll hear from Miss Marissa. All right, go ahead. All right, Miss Marissa, can you hear us? All right, we can't hear you right now. Maybe have some difficulties. We'll hear from Miss Cecilia now, and then we'll get back to Miss Marissa. Miss Cecilia.
Okay. Hi there. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the
Hey,
opportunity.
we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity for allowing me to speak. And I'm speaking on behalf of those who can't or are too traumatized to do so, and my mother and father as well, because my mother passed. I worked in the emergency room as a nurse, and I used to wonder how human beings could do such horrendous things to each other. And this is something you never expect is going to happen to your family. Well, the day I got that call, I just couldn't believe that it was happening to our family. And I have never looked at human beings the same, especially those that would come in, the victims mostly, because they're the ones that really suffer. I'm listening to Atkins speak, and I'm not going to call him Mr. because to me his title is not a Mr. It's a cold-blooded killer that disregarded the family. The youngest of that family was 9 months old. 9 months old, an infant. And my nephew was just a boy. And it was my understanding that Mr. Atkins was the one that pulled him back in the store when David tried to run away and held him down. And I don't know if he's the one that said that David squealed like a little girl when he shot him, Mr. Connolly shot him in the head. Those things haunt me to this day. When I look in those little kids' eyes, when we went to get the family, they were uprooted. No friends down there, nothing. They had to leave all their belongings and come states away to a place where they weren't familiar with and to start over. How do you start over from something like that? And I heard Mr. Atkins say that if he, in essence, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, that if he didn't take part with Mr. Connolly was going to kill him and them. Is that correct? Because I'd never heard that before. And if it is correct, he went home. If his life was in danger, why didn't the parents report it? If his dad saw him come into the house shaking, why didn't they report it? They had to go pick him up because they were all involved. And the biggest thing that I read in one of the things was that they were going to leave no witnesses. They all admitted to that, at least in the documents. So to me, that is so premeditated. That is so senseless. That is so evil. To know when you open that store door that you are going to kill 2 innocent people. Nobody deserves to die like that. That family was totally destroyed. And I can't even begin to tell you, it was senseless. And Mr. Atkins, I know his mother said he was a good boy, good child. But when he committed that murder, he was 24, 25 years old. That is not a child. And the other part of that is they said they didn't have the funds. My dad was a coal miner with 11 kids, and we were dirt poor. But one thing we were taught is that you better be an upstanding citizen. And by that, I mean, you don't lie, you don't steal, you don't cheat. And the fact that he didn't have the funds, I'm so tired of hearing about that when these cases come up, because that family was poor too. And I don't see how you can be any poorer than a damn coal miner with 11 kids. And I'm the second oldest, and John is the oldest.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Anshed.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Can you please conclude your statement? We also have to hear from 2 other people.
Okay, I would like to say in conclusion that Mr. Atkins has done nothing. He has had no impact compared to what the family has. And the other part of that is, in conclusion, I hope he's praying for God to forgive him, because if he isn't, hell is going to be a lot more stressful for him because that's where he's gone.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Here from Mr. John. No, you're on mute still. Now you're off of mute.
Okay.
I can hear you
I-
now.
I'll just echo my, excuse me. I'll just echo my sister's thoughts. Again, this was a senseless crime. Mr. Atkins said he was picked up 3 days later. He didn't know about the shooting. Well, if he didn't know about the shooting, why didn't he contact the police right after it happened? Why didn't he come forward and say, I was there, but I didn't do the shooting? He is an accessory to murder. He had a fair trial, he got a sentence, and he has to face the actions of his consequences. Your background has no bearing on your actions of the day, okay? You choose to do right or wrong. He chose wrong, okay? And he didn't show any remorse about it. That's the biggest thing to me. He may be innocent, but even if he is, why didn't he show any remorse by calling the police? His parents didn't do anything. It's as if he condoned it. And if we let him out on parole, what's to say another situation won't arise where he can't make the right decision between right and wrong? And the last thing I want to say is the impact on this family has been tremendous, but more tremendous on my brother's family. Children were raised without a father. My sister-in-law was so traumatized that she ended up drinking herself to death. And my mother and father were never the same after that. And I was there when the trial took place, me and 2 other sisters. And again, there was no remorse showing. So you're telling me after all this time, all of a sudden he feels bad after 20 some years? Why wasn't this approached earlier? Why didn't he petition earlier? He could have got a state-funded attorney to represent him. Having no money is not an excuse, okay? And again, I don't see how we as a society can function if we're going to let murderers not face the actions and consequences for what they did. And if we let them go, it makes a mockery of the justice system in our society. That's all I have to say.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Were we ever able to get Miss Marissa back?
I'm here.
Okay, go ahead, Miss Marissa.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
There was
ma'am.
a
You
issue.
make a brief- Okay, go ahead and make a brief statement. Yes, ma'am.
23 years, 7 months, and 27 days ago, on May 23rd, 1998, you, Kevin Atkins, along with Conley and Lathan, planned ahead of time to rob my father's store, committing the most heinous crime that day that took my father and brother's life, along with my mother, who died in 2007 because she couldn't bear to live her life without them. My mother lost a husband and a child, and me and my 2 sisters and 2 brothers, the youngest was only 2 months old at the time of the murders, lost a father, a mother, and a brother. Now that we are older and have families of our own, our children lost grandparents and an uncle who they will never have the chance to meet because the men arrested thought so little of human life. The robbery and murders were premeditated. You knew prior to going into my father's store that my father and brother would be killed, not leaving any witnesses behind. You 3 entered my father's store, waited for customers to leave, and you watched as Conley caught my father off guard, shooting him close range in the head, and you did nothing to stop it. My brother watched his father get shot and attempted to run out of the store for his life, and you, Kevin Atkins, grabbed my brother instead of letting him go. You then dragged him back inside and held my brother down while he was pleading for his life, and watched as Conley put a gun to his head at close range, pulling the trigger, killing my brother instantly. You had so many chances to make things right and not follow through with it. You could have run out of the store with my brother, sparing his life to go get help or call the police. Again, you could have done something to stop it, but you chose not to, and for this, you should suffer the consequences. I remember working at my father's store before I graduated high school and left for the military, and seeing you and Lathan as regular customers who my father would feed for free the food that had an expiration date that was still good but he couldn't sell. You and Lathan betrayed my family, and is why to this day I have a hard time trusting people and leaving my home unarmed. My father was good. My family was good to you and the community surrounding our store. Neither my father nor my brother deserved to die with 2 inflicting gunshot wounds to the head at close range over a small amount of money that my father would have willingly gave to you. I'm very thankful, though, to the community and residents of the area for their cooperation that led to Connolly Lathan and your quick arrest. Kevin Atkins, you could have stopped Connolly from killing my father and brother. Instead, you fully participated, watched, and did nothing. And for this, you should have gotten the death penalty, let alone 50 years in prison. You have only been incarcerated 23 years, not enough time for the senseless acts you committed, and it is the same number of years that my father and brother have been dead. You should be thanking God that you lived to see 48 years old. You took my father's life at 44 years old, my mother's life at 49, and my brother's life at 20 years old. He had his whole life ahead of him. Never had a chance, nor should you. You do not deserve freedom for the heinous crime you committed, to ever have the option to go on living your life like nothing happened outside of prison, or to know what it feels like to be with your family again, because you took that away from us. My mother was left to raise 4 kids on her own, and even though they still had a parent and mom left, it was like they didn't. They were left to raise themselves because our mother wasn't strong enough to get through the loss. My younger siblings needed their mother, and they had to accept that she wanted to be with our father and brother. My father, mother, and brother will forever be in my heart. What you will never be able to take from us is the memories we will cherish forever of the good times that we had with our family. I will forever hold you accountable and fight to keep you in prison until the day I die for the choices you made that devastated, destroyed, and changed my family's lives forever. The pain and grief in our family will always be there. We are all just dealing with it in our own ways still, and always will. Some of my family never recovered from it, and some are still having a hard time and may never recover. You three will.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead and wrap it up. Okay. Mr. Hugo, we'll hear from Mr. Hugo.
Mr. Wise, Ms. Wise, Mr. Kelsey, I'm going to be very brief, but I want to make a couple of important points here. First, I'm a bit confused at the legislative wizardry which even allows us to be here at this hearing today. This defendant received a sentence of 50 years at hard labor for a crime of violence. At the time, the statute read that he had to serve 85% of the time before he's parole eligible, which would be 42 and a half years. We are way early. So I don't know what the legislature's done at the direction of our current governor to even have this hearing after 23 years, but we shouldn't be having it, but we are. The second thing that I'd like to point out is that I would think that one of the things that the three of you would want to make sure of is that if you grant parole to somebody, that they have recognized the wrong that they have done and deserve to be in society again. You don't have that with Mr. Atkins. Unfortunately, Mr. Atkins wasn't under oath when he made his statement because he just lied to the three of you. Mr. Atkins claimed that he didn't know what was going to happen when he went in the store with the 2 people that ended up murdering a father and son. That's a lie. Now, I don't have to prove it's a lie because Mr. Atkins admitted that that's what he did. If Mr. Atkins' statement of facts that he just provided to you was accurate, he would not be in prison. Mr. Atkins was arrested for first-degree murder. Had I been the prosecutor on the case, we wouldn't be having this hearing because Mr. Atkins would either be on death row or serving a life sentence. Mr. Atkins was given a gift when he was allowed to plead guilty to manslaughter. The statement that these family members have made are accurate concerning what Mr. Atkins did. He was an active participant who planned an armed robbery of 2 individuals that he knew, and he went in the store with 2 men with guns knowing that they were not going to leave witnesses. Mr. Atkins was an active participant and went into the store knowing that 2 men were going to be murdered. He lied to each of you. And that alone is reason enough for you to deny him parole. Did you see any remorse on his face? Did he look at the screen and even apologize to these grieving family members that you see in front of you? Finally, let me bring this up. Mr. Atkins should be happy that he received a sentence of 50 years at hard labor. He was represented by several attorneys who had dozens and dozens of years experience, fine attorneys that I know personally, and who have done fine jobs for other indigents like Mr. Atkins. He could not have paid for better representation. And the proof is in the pudding, because instead of being on death row, where I probably would have put him, or being serving a life sentence for a murder, which I would have convicted him of, his attorneys convinced the prosecutor at the time to let him plead to manslaughter. Now, you would think that somebody that was actively engaged in an armed robbery in which two people were murdered would take a 50-year sentence and go to prison and just be quiet and be happy about it, but not Mr. Atkins. Mr. Atkins has filed multiple post-conviction relief complaints with the courts, all of which have been denied, by the way, complaining about various things that he should not complain about. So instead of pleading guilty, which he did, and going away for 50 years and being quiet, and then apologizing for what he did to these grieving family members, he stood before you, complained that his lawyers were bad, said he didn't do any of it, and didn't apologize for anything. That alone, in my opinion, should cause you to deny his parole.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll hear from Mr. Atkins. Would you like to make a statement on your behalf?
Yes. I am very sorry what happened to that family. It haunts me every day of my life. Like I said, I didn't have nothing to do with that. You know, and I'm sorry it destroyed the family and the community and my family. I'm just very sorry it happened. And I didn't know nothing about that. And I would defend that to the rest of my life. I didn't know that was happening. I didn't. And I'm very sorry for them. Like I knew the family, I knew them. I would never do that to that family. You know, sorry about that. I really am.
All right, thank you. All right. You want
At this time, I'd like to call an executive session.
Well, the executive session ran for about almost 5 minutes, and typically when they have an executive session, it's when they're going to vote in favor. But we'll see what happens here. You know, the final speech that he said again was, "I'm sorry."
All right, think we're back.
I'm sorry for what happened to the family, not for what I did. He's sticking with that. I'm sorry for what happened, and I didn't do anything. We'll go over the transcripts at the end and the unpacking. Do you think that they're going to parole? I also have something very interesting about this case. I'll tell with you as soon as the voting is done. Let's jump in.
Assume everybody can hear me. The panel's prepared to vote. I'll go ahead and make my vote first. Mr. Atkins, you've done a lot of good work. You've done a lot of, you've worked hard where you've been. You've had a good institutional record. You got some positive comments. You're definitely heading in the right direction. Listen, my concern, my concern is I'd like to see a little more victim awareness. That is a concern to me. And this is your first time coming up. You have a 50-year sentence. You spent not quite half of your sentence, and this is a terrible, terrible crime, terrible tragedy. Heart goes out to the victim's family. It's just a tough situation. But again, we're judging you based on what you've done, and you've done a lot of good work. You've done a lot of good things. But for me today, I'd like to see you have a little. Maybe get some more programming, maybe have a little more victim awareness, a little more understanding of what the victim is going through. My vote today would be to deny your parole, to write back when you had the opportunity. You have law enforcement opposition, victim opposition, and again, more programming would would do you some good. That's my vote for today. Mr. Jim Wise.
At this time, I want to thank the family, the victims, also the dad and mother, Mr. Atkins, for being here today. Mr. Hugo, I want to thank you today for your statements today. Today, my vote is going to be to deny. I'm voting to deny because of the strong victims opposition. Also, this is a terrible crime. He done 20-something years of a 50-year sentence. Today, my vote is deny. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Pearlwise.
Thank you. Mr. Atkins, when the law changed, making you parole eligible effective August the 1st of 2021, based on the record, you have done excellent. You were ready, even though you had no hope that the door would open, and you've done what you could do. And I do appreciate that. To the victim's family today, I appreciate your courage for participating in the process. But however, Mr. Atkins, I concur with my colleagues at this time to deny because of the nature of the offense, the impact of the offense, and the law enforcement opposition and the victims' opposition that have been expressed. But I echo that you right back when you were eligible for a rehearing, continue to doing what you can do like you had done before the door opened. Best wishes to you, sir, but I vote to deny today.
All right, just 3 votes to deny today. Your parole's been denied. Good luck.
Thank you.
So it was just 7 months to the day exactly. This hearing took place 8/19/2022. I'm sorry, 1/19/2022, and on 8/19/2022, he passed away. It doesn't say in his obituary what he passed away from, but this is what it says. Kevin was born to Linda. He accepted Christ at an early age. He was a member of New Light Baptist Church. His hobbies included spending time with family and friends. Kevin graduated from Minden High School. He later began to work as a metal fitter with his father. Kevin departed this earthly life on August 12, 2022, at University Medical Center in New Orleans. And, there's no mention of Angola or any of that. And that's up to them, in my opinion. If they want to, it's the obituary, they write it. We'll go over the court documents, but pretty scary. Listening to the survivors give their speech, their powerful speeches about how he had taken their father's life, their brother's life, and in connection or because of it, their mother's life. And then the moment about God having to forgive him or he's going to hell, something like that. And it took. And again, we don't know what the cause was, but he was young. He was young. Now, we'll go over the report. It was interesting listening to this hearing. At first, when I guess it was when I heard the father talking, and then I hear, okay, so because of course in the interview, the Mr. Kelsey, horrible job interviewing. Miss Wise wanted to know about his degree. It was like you didn't have a Miss Jackson or Mr. O'Shea, dive in and get the details of what he did. They could have asked him, what is it that happened? What happened in this case? And he, there was no one to ask him. Even Mr. Mirabello would have asked him. But this board, I try to avoid hearings when it has a weak board because they're just weak hearings. But thank goodness we had the DA there that I think did an outstanding job making some really strong points. But I digress a little bit. When I heard his father speaking, it was okay, he's a first felony offender. Well, we see interviews in Angola full of dozens and dozens and dozens of first felony offenders that had no record, so it doesn't make you innocent. And then saying that he was just there, he had no idea about it. But then you get into the details, and we'll go over the records of it. But to me, it actually does seem pretty clear from what we see that he knew exactly what was going on, and they claim that he actually did. When the brother tried to escape the store, he tackled him and held him there while his buddy came and assassinated him. That's what Kevin did. So let's go over the documents. It was heartbreaking, and of course, having to listen to the board tell the victims to stop talking, to wrap it up. And it's like, you know, it's been like 40 years or whatever it is. I forget. 20 years. Give them a chance to speak. You know, but okay, let's just jump into it. So, pages of the state court records submitted by the district attorney are not numbered. There was no trial for the case, so the best source of facts in the record regarding the underlying crime is found in the trial court's recitation of facts in the pre-sentence report. Right? So they didn't go to trial, but now this is an appeal. He's appealing. And this is what we're going to see here. The report showed the petitioner was in Minden. So the petitioner is the petitioner of this appeal. And this guy seems to be the big bad guy, the one that really did orchestrate all of it. And if he wasn't involved, probably wouldn't have happened. But let's just go through this. So the petitioner was in Minden visiting from Kansas City and solicited the help of Kevin and Aldrich to help him rob Lee's grocery store, a store that was operated by Mr. Anstead and his son. Petitioner, in planning the robbery, told both Lathan and Atkins that he did not want to leave any witnesses. The three men went to the store and waited for customers to leave. Petitioner went inside and asked Mr. Anstead to cook him a cheeseburger. I mean, it's just like the callousness of this crime. Cook me a cheeseburger. And then he just pulled out his weapon and shot him in the head. Then the younger Mr. Anstead attempted to run out of the store. Think about this, a young father with a newborn, 10 siblings, who's just working at his store with his dad, and all of a sudden this happens. It just happens that quickly. But he was grabbed by Mr. Atkins, the man whose parole hearing we just saw, and then he ran up to him and shot him. You know, the only grace in this, it's disturbing to even call it that, but at least the father didn't, at least the father didn't see his son get shot. The men took money from the cash box and cash registers. Petitioner also took older Mr. Anstead's wallet for a total of $2,109. And, you know, this is again why I think the petitioner, the one who came in from Kentucky to do this, is the boss. That's because he made the other two guys split $109. So so this crime was done for, what's the math on that? I don't know. So 150 for like $54.50, something like that. That's what Mr. Atkins got, a life in prison for $54. And he took the rest, $2,100. The Minden police were dispatched to the store after the report of the shooting. The younger Mr. Anstead was dead upon arrival, and the senior died later that day. Petitioner was soon arrested in Shreveport police. He was attempting to catch a bus to Kansas City. He had the $1,916.50, which was recovered from his person. The petitioner was represented in the capital case by both John M. Lawrence and Larry Johnson, who were appointed. The lawyers appeared with petitioner in court in January 2003 to enter a guilty plea to the second degree manslaughter, which avoided or homicide, which avoided the prospect of the death penalty. Petitioner was placed under oath, and his counsel stated that the specific provisions of second degree, which to which the plea could be entered, was the subsection that applies when the offender is engaged in the preparation of attempted preparation of armed robbery and a person is killed. The judge engaged in traditional Boykin colloquy. You only need to see me read this to know that I didn't go to law school. He also asked petitioner if he was unsatisfied with the representation they've offered you up until this point. Petitioner answered, yes, sir. Petitioner was told that if he went to trial and found guilty, he would have the right to appeal and the appellate counsel. The prosecutor gave a brief summary of the facts, much less detailed than recited above. He stated that petitioner and two co-defendants did commit armed robbery. Then and during the commission of the armed robbery, David Ansted Sr. and David Ansted Jr. were killed during the course of the armed robbery, which occurred at Lee's grocery store. Please don't strike me for listing an address. YouTube, this is clearly a commercial address, not a residential address. Thank you. For those of you who hear me saying that, it's I get PTSD when addresses are listed because I was struck once for listing an address in this type of manner. Anyways, and you only need 3 strikes and your YouTube channel is shut down. There's no questions asked. So if you can imagine that anxiety that I get from this type of stuff. Mr. Johnson, if they believe the plea deal was being made freely and voluntarily and they agreed to that it was, the court accepted the plea. Sentencing was delayed in the light of the approaching trials. The co-defendant, again, whom petitioner agreed to testify. Petitioner appeared in court about a year later, in February 2004, for sentencing. He was represented at the hearing by Jack Buddy Slade of the Indigent Defender Board. Attorney Slade explained that former counsel Mike Lawrence had since resigned as a public defender and had begun working for the district attorney. Slade said that in speaking with petitioner just now to inform him of those circumstances. Well, isn't that interesting? Isn't that a switch of careers, to be a public defender one day and then working for the DA the next day? Although I think that probably is more common than I would think, right? It's probably common. You often hear of people who were defend. Miss Jackson was a public defender for a very long time. Pretty amazing, right? The court asked petitioner for the grounds for his motion to withdraw his plea, and the petitioner said he felt like Lawrence wasn't representing me right. At that, every time he saw Lawrence, it was right before the court, before I came in here. So I ain't never seen him. He never come to and talk to me, The court reminded petitioner that when he entered his plea, he stated that he was satisfied with his representation to that point. Basically, it's just going through how he wanted to withdraw his guilty plea. The case had been previously set for trial, and a jury was convened when the petitioner elected to take a plea offer that took the death penalty off the table. The court added it was probably a good thing that you took that plea because in all likelihood you would have been found guilty and you would be sentenced to die in the electric chair, which I would agree with that statement. He would not have been found not guilty from what we see. Although it probably would have benefited his co-defendants, they probably would have gotten a better deal had he gone to trial because they would have had them testify against him. The court again explained that a mere change of mind did not allow withdrawal of the plea. There must be some problem with the plea, petitioner responded that he was not, and the petitioner responded that he was not guilty of murder. I didn't murder nobody, so that's why I want to withdraw my plea. Remember, this is not the gentleman we just saw. Although, as the family would say, I'm not going to call him what, sir or gentleman. This is his co-defendant, the one who pulled the trigger. The judge reminded petitioner that he specifically asked petitioner if that if the recited factual basis of the homicide was true. The petitioner agreed that it was. The court said that the contention that the counsel did not adequately represent the petitioner could be grounds for a post-conviction application, but it was not grounds for withdrawal of a guilty plea. Consecutive life sentences were imposed. So basically, he shows up. So they're going to go to trial. Then he took a deal so he wouldn't get the chair. Then he said, you know what, prison ain't that great. I'm going to go and say that I want a trial again. And the judge said, no, too bad. And his attorney objected for the record. So that's what this appeal is about. And anyways, we're not going to get any more info. I'll put the link in the description. Thank you, Richard, of course. But the crime is just so senseless. You hear it from the family. You hear it in their voice. They never, like they said, there's basically like they lost a father and a mother. You know, to think the mother died of a broken heart really just months after this happened, under the age of 50. And you know, you didn't, like the DA pointed out, you didn't really see remorse. And it could be that at this point, Kevin really believes that he didn't do anything wrong. You hear it from his parents. That would be the topic of conversation whenever they speak. And it's like 20 years later, he's led to believe in but the bottom line is that he went with the buddies to the store to rob it, waited till everyone left. They claimed that they planned to leave no witnesses. They immediately... Is it theoretically possible that he knew it would be a robbery? He didn't expect people to be shot? Yeah, I believe that. Is it possible that he didn't tackle the guy and that it was, of course, it's just testimony, right? There's no eyewitnesses except their fellow criminals. So are those type of testimonies? This would be like a Dr. Grande when he does such a good job in it, though. He talks about the supporting factors for the truth. So yeah, the only witnesses claiming that he grabbed him, the son, to prevent him from escaping was his fellow criminals. So it could be that their statements are not reliable. But then you hear how he didn't call the police. He didn't, so you can say, well, he was... But all those points, it doesn't make a difference. You're not going to get off. You're not going to just get away with it. You're going to serve time. Even if what he's saying is true, he's still going to, there's nothing they can do. You're not going to walk away scot-free. And he got the 40 years, which the DA said was a good deal. And then because of Act 122, he was became eligible for parole when he was given a sentence without any parole. But he passed away anyways shortly after this hearing. I don't know if that will bring any solace to the family, but the solace it can bring is that they don't have to go to another parole hearing. Love to hear your thoughts on this. And with that, I'll let you go.